Hi, welcome to the Data Hub X-Ray session. My name is John Scolomero and I'm here with my colleague Georg. I'm the Manager of Architecture and Governance here in Product Marketing at Mendix. And Georg, it's good to have you here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Georg. I'm a Product Manager for Data Hub here in Rotterdam.
So today we're going to go and dig in a little deeper around external entities. We're going to talk about what they are and how they work. We're going to show you how they work within the Studio Pro environment. And then lastly, we're going to talk about performance and security applications of external entities. So Georg, can you talk to me a little bit about what the goals were or the challenges were that we were trying to solve with external entities?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key problems with integrations is that it simply takes too much time. We've solved a lot of these challenges with low code and specifically with Mendix. So a big of a chunk is already taken out, but still you have a lot of time consumed in a project. It's usually around 30%. And one of the reasons is that integrations by themselves are very complex. You have to make sure that you standardize across your organization to make sure that you can reuse integrations as much as possible. But at the same time, you have to also make sure that you build secure integration. They need to be performant and especially robust in an enterprise context. To be able to do that, you also require a very, very thorough understanding of the technology that you're using. So the combination of a lot of research up front, understanding the architecture, finding the right people to have that conversation with, and then putting this all together in the context of a project consumes way too much time. So what we're trying to do is make all of that as easy as possible for any kind of developer in the Mendix scope.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Georg. But how do external entities solve these problems?
Before we started working on Data Hub and external entities, we set ourselves a couple of goals. We just didn't want to repeat what's been done in the past. We wanted to make sure that we get the most out of the experience when working with integrations. So one of the goals we've set ourselves is that when we build integrations or when our users build integrations, it should be done as quickly as possible. And not only the professional developer. Usually there's a handoff, even with Mendix developers sometimes, to an architect or what we refer to tech tom. That just extends the time frame to build an application. So you create an organizational dependency. So we want to increase the range of developers that build and use data through integrations. Also, we wanted to make sure that when we look at making this easier, we look out for standards. There's a lot of integration technologies out there, but if we want to make this as easy as possible, we need to find something that is reusable in the market and also known in the market. And at the same time, the consumption of that external data should be simple and consistent. So building a lot of bells and whistles to it does not really help. And also following the general approach of Mendix, making sure that we abstract away the technology as much as possible. But at the same time, we want to keep your options open. Because what we don't want is to box you in something. We don't want to trivialize the integrations work. So we will make sure that wherever it makes sense, we will follow the principles of Mendix and help you model faster and give you the tools that you need.
Okay. So with that being said, how did we solve that?
So the approach we've taken is to look out in the market for standards, and we looked at obviously what we want first, and as said before, we wanted to find a standard that helps us achieve all the goals, and the one that came closest is Odata. Odata, Open Data Protocol, is widely adopted. It follows the most common technical integration capability, which is based on REST, but extends it at the same time. You can almost think of Odata being a query language, similar to SQL. So you not only get the robustness and the maturity of REST as integration technology, but also the capabilities that you need already included in that standard. So these additional capabilities could be actions, similar to get methods, for example. It could be change sets or callbacks, aggregations. A lot of these typical capabilities that you end up building in your application are already included in the standard. And the best of all, Odata comes with a metadata model. So that means that when you use Odata, similar to SOAP, for example, it describes what it entails, the domain model, but also its capabilities. So by looking at the metadata model, it's fairly easy and straightforward to interpret what the integration is about. And that all led us to using Odata for our data hub external entities.
Okay, that's great, Georg. Can you show me some examples of how OData works?
Yeah, absolutely. I pulled together a quick list of some of the most common examples. When we register a service in Data Hub, we analyze the metadata model. So we know exactly what is included in that specific endpoint. And that metadata file plus the additional metadata from the catalog is then provided to the development environments so they can understand what the Odata service provides. We've also built a parsing mechanism that translates the OData specification into the Mendix modeling language. So instead of, as said earlier, fiddling with the URLs, you get the same experience that you have with local entities or non-persistent entities. You get a graphical, visual model of your data and all the capabilities that you would use in your application. For example, the filtering, it's basically a search, what you need behind a search. That is embedded in the external entities. So you don't really use them specifically or directly. It's more that we made sure that the development experience that you know of in Mendix already is replicated to external data as well. So the runtime interprets all of these requirements and requests for you, and the modeling experience stays the same.
Okay, Georg, that sounds pretty good. But can you kind of tell me? It sounds like there's a lot of scope around OData. There's a lot of parts to the standard, that it's pretty robust. It covers metadata, it covers querying and things like that.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what the modeling experience is going to look like?
Yes. I think there's something even better than talking about it. I can show you.
Okay.
Awesome.
So let's take a look at how that actually works. So we can take a look at the modeling experience for external entities, but also look under the hood a bit. So let's get to the demo. What we have here is the Studio Pro with a new pane, the Data Hub pane, which allows us to search directly in the Data Hub. Data Hub will come with a set of sample data sets. We've created an HR service with employees, departments, and offices, so anyone can explore and start modeling with Data Hub. To be able to get there, I just have to search for sample, and the result will come up. The Data Hub search will make sure that you find data as easily as possible, and Studio Pro will pick up the search result and makes it as easy as possible to model with that external data. So I can expand that service, see what is available to me, I find the employees, and just simply drag and drop them over on my canvas. You see from the look and feel, it is almost the same as a local entity or a non-persistent entity. The color is a bit different, it's purple, and it has an indicator what type of application is providing that information. Other than that, by dragging and dropping, we get a bit of additional information already with the external entities. Because we need to know how to connect, it comes with the link to the environment that provides the information, but also with an opportunity to configure it further. So that screen will allow you to set security information for authentication. We will come to security and performance later, so I'm going to move on from this for now and focus a bit more on the modeling experience. As I said, it looks the same, apart from the color, but you can almost do the same as with a local entity. So if I'm looking at the data model, I can remove information. Let's say I don't want to contact my employees through email anymore because WhatsApp is the new type of communication. I can just remove that. Yeah, well, you have to go with the times. So what you can do is access the complete data model, similarly to any local or non-persistent entity. No problem at all. You also are able to find the hidden or deleted attributes again. So it's not really the same 100% in terms of experience, but it is adopted to the OData service and metadata behind the scenes. The same goes for associations. We already know from the search results there is not only employees but also departments and offices. So if I want to include that, of course I can drag and drop the office and department there, but I can also access that information through the entity document and the window right away. So if I want to extend my integration to not only pull in employee information but also departmental information, I just simply check it, accept it, and the data model is built for me. The interesting thing is that not only that is the same, almost anything that comes after that is also the same. So let's say we want to build a really simple application, just for the sake of this demonstration, that shows me those employees. What I need to do is build a data grid with that information. So I can do that from the home page, drag and drop a data grid onto it. It's empty. My connector already shows me the entities I've modeled, I've pulled in from Data Hub. And similar as any persistent or non-persistent entities, I can drag and drop them onto my data grid. Same look and feel, still get asked the same question. Do I automatically fit the contents of the data grid? Yes, I will. Saves me some time. And I do get the usual error message that I need to have a page for the details. Now, I can build one myself, but the nice thing about Mendix is there is a nice feature that just for testing or for even wider purposes, I can create pages directly for my data model. I can do that with external entities as well. So for my employees, I'm going to create both an overview and a detail page. Same experience. If I go back to my home page, I can associate. So if I go to my home page again with my data grid, I can select an on-click page and just simply select the one I just created. Error gone, and now we can run it. So modeling experience so far, pretty much the same, I would say.
It's interesting how easy it is and how it combines the external data use with what we're already able to do within Mendix and low-code. So that's really nice.
Very good. So let's take a look at the application. I'm going to start it, and to make sure that we can follow what's happening, I'm also going to bring up the console. And we're going to trace those OData calls being made to the sample data sets. So let me expand this one. And what we need to do to see those is to set the appropriate log levels. If it's unfamiliar to you, you could basically set the right log levels on almost anything that's happening behind the scenes. What we want to do is make sure that whenever OData is consumed, we're going to trace what's going on. That will help us see the calls that are being made from the external entities. So let's clear up everything and then go to the application and see what's happening. So the Mendix application will then query the appropriate amount of records from the external system. Not all of them, it's 1 million, just to show that we can also handle a lot of data, which is no problem with OData. And that call that is being determined by the page, not by the external entities or the data model, but the page, so the application, is then translated into a specific OData request. And this can be seen here. And this is very similar to the examples we've seen before. So you have the URL, you have the endpoint, and obviously also the entity, which is employees. And everything that comes after the question mark is then the typical notation of the RESTful OData interface. So we know we want the top 20, and it's ordered by ID. Why is it ordered by ID? I haven't specified anything. The only thing we know is we want the top 20 out of everything. So if we want to see how that behavior changes, and we can go back to the application and say, just, I don't know, sort by first name. So I change the application behavior, and the next call is being made, which is fairly similar with one difference. I change the order by to first name and then ID. That action was not specified anywhere in my model, by me at least. It's already defined by the external entities that you can do it by just building a page. Actually, you don't even have to do anything because building a page with Mendix already incorporates that. And it did before, and now we can do the same with external data. It doesn't stop there. We spoke a bit about the capabilities, so I can do the same with anything else that you saw on that page. Another thing that OData allows you to do is paginate, and we've built that in external entities as well. So I can simply go ahead and skip to the next 20 employees. If I want to understand what's going on, I get another request, and that request basically says, give me the top 20, still because I want to see top 20 in my on my page, but I'm skipping the first 20. Standard in OData, implemented in external entities. There's nothing you have to implement yourself. It's already part of the modeling experience. So if the page that you design is supposed to paginate, the rest is taken care of. You already know that from persistent entities. It's the same experience also for external entities and external data now. You can even take that a step further by filtering for information. So I have my million employees that I want to search through. And let's see if John is a namesake in that database. So if I search for John, it comes back with actually fairly a lot because it is not a fixed search. But what happens in the background is that exactly that query is being built automatically. So if you look at the search string that's being appended, you can find it here in the OData query filter substring John. All of that, again, driven through the modeling experience when building a page. It's not technical at all. You don't have to add anything to the OData specification or the integration directly. It's been taken care of for you. So that is basically how we handle OData with external entities. It's all about the modeling experience and making sure that we abstract all the technology away where it makes sense. As I said, security and performance, we do want to leave you in control. We'll handle that a bit later, and then we can speak about the concepts too. So there's one more thing I wanted to show, as promised. Often cases you want to build applications with external data and local data, so persistent information. We will allow you to do that, obviously, but we also wanted to make it a nice experience while modeling, while still making sure that you stay in control over the architecture. As soon as you relate local data with external entities, external data, you create a dependency. And you don't want to end up with an application that caches everything just to make sure you can handle those relationships or associations. So the way it's done with Mendix is if we go back to our domain model, I can simply add a local entity here. So let's say I want to add time cards to my employees with a specific start date. No problem. I have my persisted local entity now, and what I can do is relate the two together as they were local entities. So modeling experience is not different. Now, as I said, behind the scenes, different things will happen, because if I now relate a time card to an employee, I still need to keep track of that employee. But I also don't want to cache all the time. Otherwise, I'll create a Frankenstein, a monster application. Nobody wants that. So what happens behind the scenes is if I run this again, the changes are applied to the application, and Mendix makes sure that the domain model is reflected also in the database model. And I can show you real quick how the caching mechanism works and speak about the performance aspect a bit later. So in case you know it, when the application is using the built-in database, you can always access that database straight from Studio Pro. I'm going to take a look at the database model. This will be the same regardless of what database you will use. It's more about the structure. What we'll see is in the viewer, the entire tables that are behind the Mendix application. And what we have here is the time card table. This time card table is the one that we would expect because it's local data. We need to keep it somewhere, and this is the place. But we will also see an employees table. But if you look at the data structure, it does not show all the attributes that we've seen in the model. We only keep the ID to make sure that when we access it again or relate information later, that we have something to track it with. So one of the requirements, obviously, is that if you have an OData interface that you want to connect to through external entities, you have to have an identifiable ID.
Yep.
So if we want to take a look how this works, it's fairly straightforward. Let's see how many we already have in our database. So I can query for the count. And it's 138. If I now go ahead and maybe just paginate to the end, also no problem, and run this query again, it's 158. So the 20 were added. Now, not going to go into details because we didn't really relate data yet. Don't want to end up building the entire application. But the data structure is still there for us if we choose to put time card data in and relate it to the employee. So here you can see the corresponding table that's already prepared with the time card ID and the employee ID. So at some point later, if you decide to associate it to in your application logic, the data model is already prepared for that. And from that moment on, external entities will also take care of the caching and the performance-related aspect of it. Very good. So this is what I wanted to show you.
I have to say, Georg, that's fantastic. I really like the part where you showed the sorting and filtering and paging. Having built that myself several times, it's really nice to see how quickly that came together. Security is usually a really important aspect to how we build our software. So can you talk a little bit about how security works in Data Hub and with external entities?
Absolutely, absolutely. So one important aspect before we dive into the security aspect of external entities, security, as always, relies on the publishing end. So the goal of external entities is not to take over security or replace it in the publishing app. It's just making sure that whatever security model is chosen can be supported. So for external entities, the security options are similar to other integrations. So you can choose how to integrate, whether with a username and password combination, token, or any form of identity federation that's supported. You will find those control options directly at the service that you're consuming, to a point where you can create your own header information or consume your own header information to connect. So that's a very important aspect, that whatever you chose as a security model on the publishing end can be consumed through external entities at the same time. So there is no extra model that needs to be built. It's incorporated, but it doesn't lock you in at the same time. It allows you to follow the publishing end, so to speak.
Okay, so that's really interesting. If I could say it a different way, what you're really saying is that the downstream systems that own the data also own the security model over that data. Is that correct?
That's the case, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so that's going to make our lives a lot easier because it'll distribute the security models, but still make sure that everything's consistent. But what about the cases where the security model isn't quite that clear or clean?
Yeah, that's a very good point. In the best case scenario, you federate your identity through the downstream systems. So if you log into system A and system A consumes from system B, that identity is clear throughout the chain. So you would not gain access to more data than you would by accessing application B directly. That's not always the case. And those cases can be tricky, but Mendix built access control on any entity. So if you've modeled with Mendix, the persistent entities allow you to be very specific on access control. And we've added that capability also to external entities. So even if you cannot provide the full granular access control in your source system through identity federation, you can still lock it down on role level. For example, you can say this user has specific access to that specific external entity. So even in your consuming app, we want to make sure that applications can build in the most secure way.
So that's great. That really goes back to what we were saying earlier about our goal to make sure that we never paint our customers or ourselves into a box when we're building this. So what about performance?
Very good topic. We've just seen an application being built with a service that provides a million record and was fairly quick, I have to say. The beauty about Odata is, and I mentioned it in the beginning, it can almost be seen as SQL on top of REST, and REST itself is very performant. And Odata itself does not really add much to it. Usually you get a bit of an extra through a query language on top. With Odata, it's you can't really feel and see it. So the page-by-page comparison is not really visible. What's also interesting is that when you talk about large volumes of data, as mentioned in the demo, you don't want to end up replicating all that information. That would defeat the whole purpose. You also don't want to be in a situation where you lose the relationship. So we needed to find the right balance in the middle. And what we've shown in a demo is basically the leeway to a very performant system where we reuse the Mendix caching system. So we treat external entities or the objects that come through external entities also as Mendix objects. So based on the page usage and the usage in general, we know what's being used or not. So when we cache information more than the ID that we store in the database, we keep it around as long as necessary and only query the information again when the caching system thinks it has been a while, could have got rid of it earlier ago. If it's being used very often, then we keep it around, obviously. And that is very similar, very consistent to the behavior that we'd see with Mendix applications in general.
The modeling experience is great, so thank you so much for showing that. But also, I really appreciated touching on security and performance, because I know those are things that developers of all stripes get beat up on all the time, and it's nice to show that they're going to be enabled and empowered to successfully navigate that through. So that being said, thank you, Georg, again, and thank you all for joining our Mendix World 2020 session here on Data Hub X-Ray. There are 3 other sessions for you to attend during Mendix World here. We have an overview session about democratizing data. We have a how-to session about how to use Data Hub in your day-to-day work. Also, please feel free to reach out to us via the Mendix World Slack channels for these sessions and mendix.com/data-hub for getting more information and letting us know that you're interested. Thanks again. Bye.